Hey, welcome to 1 Minute Excel. The video you are about to watch tonight is a combination of previous lessons focused around reference formulas. This includes your VLookup formula, HLookup, and index match formulas, as well as more dynamic variations of each, the VLookup match, HLookup match, and index match match. My goal, as always, is for you to spend a short amount of time and hopefully gain a lot of knowledge very quickly based on just some very quick examples and tutorials of each. I hope you enjoy. Hey, here's a really quick run through of a VLookup. Basically, a VLookup has a few parts. The lookup value, what do you want to find the answer for? The table array, where do you want to look? The column index, how many columns over do you have to go in the table array to find what you want? And then the range lookup, basically if you pick false, you'll get an exact match. If you pick true, it'll approximate. I suggest just going for false or 0. So running through this really quickly, if we want to find the score for the select set of students, imagine if this was 1,000 students. You don't want to go through and manually find these. So if we wanted these 4 students, we'd write the following: equals VLookup, open parentheses. What do you want to find? So select val, because that's what we want to find. Go ahead and hit F4 3 times. That's good practice. It'll lock the cell so that if you move this formula over, which we're going to do just now, you wouldn't have to redo it. It's going to lock it here and it's going to go down the rows and not move over the columns. Then select the data set. So it's going to be the data set here, student names, all the way through to symbol. Hit F4 again. Now, how many columns do you want to go over? Well, we know the first one is the name, so that's 1. Score is 2. So go ahead and hit 2. And like I said, just select 0 at the end. 0, or you can type in false. Close parentheses, hit enter, and that's the answer there. And copy that down. And now we can do the exact same thing, but now if you go into the formula again, change that 2 over there, change it to 3, because now we're going to go 3 over. 1, 2, 3. And you can copy it down. And now you have your data for student scores and symbols, and that is a VLookup. You'll recall that the column piece, the third part of the formula, indicates how many columns over you want to go in the data. So for the data set here, if we wanted to find the score for val, we'd go to the data and we'd go over 2 columns. And if we wanted the symbol, we would go over 3. And you can type 2 and 3 and 4 along as you need. But if you had to go over 50 columns, that would become very tiring, and there's got to be an easier way, which there is. So what we can do is we can use a match formula for the column, which I'll do as follows. So we're going to say equals VLookup, select the cell, in this case val. We can lock it hitting F4 3 times, which will lock the column so it doesn't move over. Select our range. Our range is going to be the same as the other example. Hit F4 once to lock that. And now for the column piece, we're actually going to type in match, open parentheses. And in this case, we're going to match the header above. So we're going to match score. Hit F4 twice. That'll lock the row. So as we move the formulas down, they'll still keep it in that area there. The range here for the match, the array, is actually going to be the headers in the data above. Go ahead and select those. Hit F4 once to lock it so that these stay the same. Now we're going to do comma and hit 0 for an exact match. Close out your match formula. Hit comma again. You'll see it now goes back to the VLookup formula. And in this case, we're just going to say 0 or false for an exact match. Close parentheses, hit enter. You can see the score there. And now if we copy everything through, we should see score and symbol, which we do. That is a VLookup match formula. It's very similar to a VLookup. Instead of using columns and going vertically, we're going to use rows. And we're going to look horizontally using the rows to determine the data. So for the example here, we just have student details. We have just students randomly selected 1 through 8. The student name here, score, and symbol. So diving into a quick example here, we're going to say equals HLookup, open parentheses. The driver here is going to be the student name. So we're going to hit F4 3 times just to lock the column. Hit comma. And now the data point here is going to be in this data set here. We'll start with the student name, work our way over. Let's go down and select what we want. Hit F4 to lock the range, comma, and now we want to go down rows rather than across columns like the VLookup. So going down rows, the first one would be the student name, the second one would be the score, which is what we want. So we're going to say 2 comma 0. 0 will choose false. You can write false as well, but that'll give you an exact match. Close parentheses, and that'll give us the score. Let's copy it over, and in this case for symbol, we want to go down 1, 2, 3. So let's change that 2 there to a 3. We're going down 3 rows. Hit enter, and you can see there now we've got the score and the symbol. We'll just copy it over quickly across all of them, and you can see here for the different students we've got their name, score, and symbol, and that is an H-Lookup. So where your H-Lookup has the lookup value, the table array, and then the row index, what we're going to do is instead of typing in the row index number of, let's say, 2 or 3 rows down, we're actually going to use a match formula to tell us where to go based on the headers above. It'll make more sense when we do an example, so let's kick that off. So firstly, we're going to say equals HLookup, open parentheses. In this case, let's select the student names for the example. I'm going to hit F4 3 times to lock the column as we move around. Then we say comma, and now let's select the range of data. In this case, it's the student names, scores, and symbols. Select the range, hit F4 once, that'll lock the range permanently. Comma, and now the row index number we're going to substitute, and we're actually going to move and use the match formula here. So we're going to type match, open parentheses. What do we want to look up? In this case, we want to look up score, which is in the header here. I'm going to hit F4 twice. That'll lock the row, but it'll allow us to move over columns as we copy the formula down. The lookup array for the match is now going to be over here. It's going to be this whole column of data, the student, the score, and the symbol. So select that range, hit F4 once to lock it, comma. You're going to use 0 here for an exact match. Now you're going to close out the match, close parentheses, and now when you hit comma, you've actually gone back to the VLOOK, or the HLookup in this case. And now for the range lookup, again, you're going to say false. I use 0, but you can type false as well. And close parentheses, hit enter. That's the score, and now we can copy the formula across for score and symbol. And you can see score and symbol show up, and that's a HLookup match formula. It's a little bit like a VLookup in a lot of ways. It's easier and better to use once you get used to it. It has 2 main parts, 2 formulas. The first is the index, which has the array, which is where is everything located. The row number, which we're actually going to then jump into the match to figure out, and the column number, which tells you how many columns over you want to go once you find the data you're looking for. In terms of the match formula, there's the lookup value, which is just going to be the one item we're looking for. The lookup array, where is that one item found? And the match type, I recommend choosing false, which is 0, and that'll give you an exact match. So if we were to kick it off, the first thing we'll do is we'll say equals index, select the entire data range set. And the beauty of this is you can go both directions, whereas a VLookup, you can only go to the right. Go ahead and lock that by hitting F4 once. Now type in match, hit open parentheses again. Now the lookup value here is going to be the score, 76. Hit F4 3 times, that'll lock the column so that it doesn't move over when we move the formula. Comma, the lookup array. In this case, it's going to be where are all the scores? Well, they're over here. So select the range, hit F4 to lock it. Match type is going to be 0. Now you can close this formula, close parentheses, hit comma, and this is going to be the last bit of your index match. How many columns over? In this case, from the score to the student, we're going to go 1, because it starts here at the beginning. So hit 1 and hit close parentheses, enter. You can see it says Chuck. Now let's copy this formula over to the right. And in this case, we're actually going to say 3, because it starts at the beginning of the array and goes over 3. You can see Chuck had a C. We'll go ahead and copy these down. And you can see based on the scores, Marty had a C, Shonda had a B, and Ricardo had a B. And that is an index match formula. The only difference is that when we get to the column count in the index formula, index match, we're now going to use another match to pull the column. So instead of, let's say we wanted the data 2 columns over, we'd say comma 2, or we'd say comma 3 all the way out. If we wanted to go 50 columns out, we don't really want to have to write it out every time. It's very cumbersome, and there's got to be a better way, and in this case there is. So running through a quick example here, we're going to say equals index, open parentheses, select the range for the index. We can lock it with F4, hitting it once, comma, and we're going to type the first match, And in this case, we're going to match the score. Select the cell, hit F4 3 times, that'll lock the column. And in the data here, we know it's going to be under the score range. So select that range, hit F4. Now hit comma, and we're going to do 0 for an exact match. Close out that formula. Now, in this case, for the column, we're actually going to do a second match. So type in match, open parentheses. And in this case, we're going to select student in the row here for the header. Go ahead and hit F4 twice. That'll lock the row. So it'll move. It won't move down, but it will allow us to move over. Hit comma, and now in the row header in the data above, select that range. Hit F4 once to lock it. Now we're going to say comma. We're going to say 0, an exact match, and close out parentheses and hit enter. And there you can see Chuck is the student. Let's go ahead and copy it over for symbols as well. And that is your index match formula. Well, you made it this far, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this compilation of videos. Feel free to visit our page for individual lessons, and if there's something that we haven't covered, we'd love to hear from you. You can add it in the comments below, and if you feel like subscribing, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. Have a great night.